Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I am talking about this very interesting topic, how to remember everything. What if I told you that your memory is not as bad as you think? What if the problem is not your brain? What if the problem is only your method? In the next few minutes you will meet a man who forgot everything. He forgot names. He forgot tasks. He forgot new English words one day. After he learned them, then his life changed. He met a person who understood memory. By the end of this story, you will understand something new about your own brain. His name is Daniel. Daniel is 30 years old. He lives in a small city and works in an office. Daniel has a problem. He forgets things every single day. He forgets names. He forgets appointments. He forgets where he puts his keys. Every morning Daniel says the same sentence to himself. I have a bad memory. He believes this sentence completely. He has believed it for many years. Daniel is also learning English. He studies new words every week. But 2 days later the words disappear from his mind like smoke in the wind. Last Monday, Daniel met a new colleague at work. Her name was Sarah. 5 minutes later, he called her Sarah, then Susan, then he. Simply said, "Hey, you." Sarah looked confused. Daniel felt embarrassed. This kind of moment happened to him almost every week. At home, the problem continued. His wife asked him to buy milk, bread, and eggs. He walked to the shop and bought chips and soda instead. He forgot the shopping list completely. His wife was not angry, but she was tired. C'est Daniel. You always forget things. Daniel felt something heavy inside his chest. He was tired of forgetting. He was tired of feeling stupid in front of people he loved. At work, the problem was worse. His manager gave him 3 small tasks. In a meeting, Daniel wrote nothing down because he wanted to remember them naturally. 2 hours later, he remembered only 1 task. He finished that task but forgot the other 2 completely. His manager was disappointed and Daniel felt terrible. That night Daniel sat alone in his room. He looked at his English notebook full of new words. He whispered quietly, I study so much, but I remember so little. He closed his eyes and asked himself a painful question. Why can some people remember everything easily? Why is my brain so weak compared to other people? He did not know it yet, but this question would change his life. The next day, something unexpected happened. Daniel met a woman named Elena at a small coffee shop near his office. Elena was reading a thick book about the human brain. Daniel noticed the book and asked a simple question. He asked her if the book was interesting. Elena smiled and said something surprising. She said memory is not a gift. She said memory is a skill just like cooking or driving. Daniel laughed a little because he did not believe her. He told her honestly that his memory was naturally bad. He told her that some people are simply born with strong memory and others are not. Elena shook her head gently. She explained that scientists have studied memory for many years. Research suggests that almost everyone can improve their memory significantly with the right methods. Daniel felt something strange inside him. It was a small spark of hope. He asked Elena if she could teach him. Elena agreed, but she gave him one. Important warning. She said she could not make his memory perfect. She said no person can remember absolutely everything forever, but she promised something powerful. Instead, she promised that he could remember far more than he thought possible. She promised that his daily life could completely change. Their first lesson happened right therein. The coffee shop. Elena asked Daniel to look at the table. Next to them, on that table were 5 objects that a stranger had left behind. There was a red cup. There was a silver key. There was a green notebook. There was a small orange. There was a black phone. Elena asked Daniel to look at these 5 objects for only 10 seconds. Now it is your turn. Look at these 5 objects one more time. In your mind. A red cup, a silver key, a green notebook, an orange and a black phone. Try to remember these 5 objects. We will come back to them later in this story. Keep them somewhere safe in your memory. Elena explained the first secret of memory. She called it attention and focus. She said most people forget things simply because they never truly paid attention in the first place. She explained that the brain cannot store information it never really noticed. When Daniel looked at objects without focus, his brain recorded almost nothing. This was the real reason he forgot his wife shopping list. Daniel understood something important. In that moment, he was not stupid. Information entered his mind. Elena gave him his first small challenge. Next time someone tells him something important, he must stop everything else. Them his full attention for just a few seconds. The next technique Elena taught him was association. She explained that the brain remembers new information better when it connects to something already familiar. She said a new fact alone is weak, but a new fact connected to an old memory becomes strong. She used Sarah, the colleague, as an example. She told Daniel to think of something that sounds like Sarah. She suggested the word star because it sounds similar and creates a clear picture. Daniel imagined Sarah wearing a bright star on her shirt. It was a strange picture, but it was also unforgettable. From that day, Daniel never forgot her name again. Elena then introduced visualization. She explained that the brain remembers pictures far better than plain words. She said if you turn boring information into a strange or funny image, your brain will hold onto it much longer. She gave Daniel a small test using his own shopping list. Instead of just reading milk, bread, and eggs, he needed to imagine something wild. He imagined a giant loaf of bread swimming in a river of milk while a chicken threw eggs at it from the sky. It sounds silly, but silly pictures are powerful. The stranger the image, the easier it becomes to remember. Daniel laughed, but he also understood the power of this simple trick. A few days later, Elena introduced active recall. She explained that reading information again and again is actually a weak way to study. She said the brain grows stronger when you try to remember something without looking at the answer. She asked Daniel to close his notebook and try to say 5 English words from memory. At first he could only remember 2 words, but after trying 3 more times without Looking, he could remember all 5. Clearly, this technique felt uncomfortable at first. Testing yourself feels harder than simply reading. But Elena explained that this small discomfort is exactly what builds a stronger memory. Next, Elena explained something called spaced repetition. She said the brain forgets new information quickly unless you review it at the right moments. She explained that reviewing information after 1 day, then after 3 days, then after 1 week makes memories much stronger. Daniel decided to try this with his English vocabulary. Instead of studying 20 new words once and forgetting them, he reviewed the same 10 words several times over 2 weeks. By the second week, those 10 words felt permanent in his mind. He realized something important about his old study habits. He used to study once and expect perfect memory forever. Now he understood that memory needs gentle, repeated visits like watering a small plant. Elena then taught him chunking. She explained that the brain struggles with long lists of separate information. But when you group information into small, meaningful chunks, the brain handles it far more easily. She used a phone number as an example. A number like 555 to 31. 7 is hard to remember as 7 separate digits, but grouped as 555 and 2, 3, 1, and 7, it suddenly feels much simpler. Daniel tried this technique with a long shopping list from his wife. Instead of remembering 8 separate items, he grouped them into categories, like fruits, dairy, and snacks. His mind felt lighter, and the list became easy to hold. One afternoon, Elena introduced something that amazed Daniel completely. She called it the Memory Palace. She explained that people can remember long lists by placing imaginary items inside a familiar place like their own home. She asked Daniel to imagine his own front door. At the front door, he placed a giant red cup spilling everywhere. In the kitchen, he imagined a silver key stuck inside the refrigerator door. In the living room, he pictured a green notebook sitting on the sofa like a person. Near the window, he imagined a huge orange rolling across the floor. And finally, on his bed, he pictured a black phone ringing loudly with lights flashing. Do you remember those 5 objects from the coffee shop earlier in this story? Try to recall them right now before continuing. A red cup, a silver key, a green notebook, an orange and a black phone. If you remembered most of them, your brain just used the same technique Daniel was learning. This is the incredible power of connecting information to a place you already know well. Even complicated lists become simple when your imagination gives them a home. Elena then explained the story method. She said the brain naturally loves stories far more than random facts. When information becomes part of a story, it becomes almost impossible to forget completely. She showed Daniel how to remember a list of tasks using a short imaginary story. He needed to send an email, call his mother, buy a birthday gift, and clean at his desk. He imagined an email flying out of his phone, landing directly into his mother's hands, who then gave him a wrapped gift which he opened to find a tiny broom for cleaning his desk. The story was silly, but it worked perfectly. Later that day, Daniel completed all 4 tasks without writing a single note. His manager noticed and seemed genuinely surprised by the sudden change. Elena reminded Daniel about something equally important. She said emotions make memories incredibly strong. She explained that people rarely forget moments connected to strong feelings, whether those feelings are joy, fear, or surprise. She encouraged Daniel to add emotion into his learning whenever possible. When he learned a new English word, he tried connecting it to a funny or exciting personal memory. This simple, emotional connection made the words stick far longer than dry repetition alone. Elena also spoke about connecting new information with things Daniel already knew. She explained that a completely new fact floating alone in the mind disappears quickly, but a new fact linked to old knowledge becomes part of a much stronger network. When Daniel learned the English word furious, he connected it to a memory of his own father shouting during a football match. The connection was personal and vivid. He never confused that word again with anything similar. Another powerful lesson came next. Elena explained that using information is far more powerful than only reading it. She said the brain remembers action much better than passive input. She encouraged Daniel to use every new English word inside his own sentences immediately, instead of only reading the word furious. He said out loud, "My brother becomes furious when his team loses." Speaking the word using his own life made it permanent almost instantly. Elena then revealed something Daniel found surprising. She told him that teaching someone else is one of the strongest memory techniques of all. When you explain an idea to another person, your brain organizes that information much more clearly. That evening, Daniel tried teaching his wife the technique of visualization. He explained memory palaces and silly pictures in his own simple words. By the end of the conversation, he understood the technique even better than before because explaining it forced his brain to fully process it. The lessons continued, but Elena also spoke about the body and not only the mind. She explained that sleep plays an enormous role in memory. During sleep, the brain organizes and strengthens the information learned. During the day, Daniel realized he had been sleeping very little for months. He decided to sleep earlier and protect 7 to 8 hours every night. Within 2 weeks, he noticed his focus and memory both felt noticeably sharper. Elena also mentioned exercise and physical activity. She explained that movement increases blood flow to the brain and supports healthy memory function. Daniel began taking short walks every morning before work instead of staying on his phone. She then spoke about distractions. She explained that a mind constantly checking phones and notifications never gets the chance to properly absorb new information. Daniel started putting his phone in another room while studying English or reading important documents. Elena also taught him the value of meaningful breaks. She explained that the brain needs small rest periods to process new information properly. Daniel began studying for 25 minutes, then resting for 5 minutes instead of studying for hours without stopping. She added one final idea about learning. Through multiple senses, she explained that seeing, hearing and speaking new information together builds a stronger memory than using only one sense. Daniel began saying new English words aloud while also writing them and picturing them in his mind. Weeks passed and Daniel became a different person. He remembered names easily, using association. He remembered lists using stories and memory palaces. He remembered new English words using emotion and real sentences. His confidence at work grew stronger. Every single day, his wife noticed the change and asked him what happened to the forgetful man. She married. Then one day Elena gave Daniel his biggest challenge yet. She invited him to a small gathering with 15 new people. She asked him to remember every single name using everything he had learned. Daniel felt nervous but also, strangely, excited. One by one he met each person and used quick association and vivid images. A man named Mark became a man holding a giant marker pen. A woman named Rosa became a woman surrounded by beautiful roses. A man named Victor became a man standing proudly like a winner. By the end of the evening, Daniel remembered every single name perfectly. The room was amazed. People asked him how he did it. Daniel smiled and explained calmly that memory is not magic but simply a trained skill. Later that night, Elena asked Daniel an important question. She asked him what he believed about his memory now. Daniel thought carefully before answering. He said his memory was never truly broken. He said he simply never learned how to use it properly. He said now he finally understood that memory can be trained just like any other skill in life. Elena smiled with quiet pride. She reminded him gently that his memory would never become absolutely perfect. But she reminded him that perfect was never actually the goal in the first place. The real goal was always progress. The real goal was remembering the people who matter. The real goal was remembering the words that help him grow on the task that build his future. Daniel looked back at the frightened, forgetful man he used to be. That man believed his brain was broken forever. This new version of himself understood a much deeper and kinder truth. If you are watching this story right now, you may feel exactly like Daniel once felt. You may believe your memory is simply weak or broken, but your brain is far more capable than you currently believe. Today, try one small technique from this story. Choose one thing you want to remember. Better whether it is a name, a word, or a task. Write it down and try connecting it to a vivid image or a short silly story exactly like Daniel did. Practice active recall by testing yourself. Instead of only reading, review important information again after one day and then again after a few more days. Give your brain the attention it deserves. Instead of rushing through information carelessly, comment below and tell us which memory technique you want to try first. Maybe it is the memory palace. Maybe it is association or the story method. Your memory is not fixed forever like a broken machine. Your memory is a living skill that grows stronger every time you train it with patience and the right method. Somewhere today, a version of You is waiting to remember, far more than you ever thought possible.